Hello everyone and welcome to NewsClick. I'm Anushka.
And I'm Ronak, and here are the major headlines of the day. Not appropriate to order an inquiry, says SC on Rafale review please. Sabarimala case to get examined by a larger bench. Teachers and students protest against NEP. Uttarakhand students protest against fee hike. West Bengal government fails to increase salaries. Primary teachers continue protests. Ceasefire in Gaza. Donald Trump's public impeachment hearing begins. Here's our first story. Rafale, the anchor of the political tussle between the Modi government and the opposition, is back in the news again. The Supreme Court today gave a clean chit to the Narendra Modi government on the purchase of the Rafale fighter jets from French company Dassault Aviation. The bench, led by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi, rejected the plea for registration of an FIR by the CBI for alleged commission of cognizable offence in the deal. The rejection of the review petitions tantamounts to the apex court giving clean chit to the Modi government for the second time. Let's see what senior journalist Paranjoy Guha Thakurta has to say about the issue.
The judgment of the Supreme Court of India on the Rafale deal was along expected lines. A three-judge bench led by the Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, and including Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul and Justice K.M. Joseph, dismissed the review petition that had been filed by petitioners Yashwant Sinha, Arun Shourie and Prashant Bhushan. But what is very, very important is, if you read carefully through those 107 pages, the main judgment which has been written by Sanjay Kishan Kaul, Judge Sanjay Kishan Kaul, and is much shorter. It is just 16 pages, whereas the separate judgment by Justice K.M. Joseph is all of 91 pages. Though he agrees with the conclusion, there are many, many questions that remain unanswered. All three judges agreed that the report that the first judgment, which was about 11 months earlier on the 14th of December 2018, on that day, the same three judges had again dismissed the petitioner's petition. And at that point of time, you see, the point that had been made that in a note given in a sealed cover, it seemed that the government had put out factually incorrect information. It had stated that the report of the Controller and Auditor General of India had been examined by the Parliamentary Committee, which is the Public Accounts Committee, and a redacted version of this document would be placed before Parliament. But wait, the government realized its mistake. And I should say the government made an application to change the judgment of the Supreme Court and said there were certain grammatical errors, there was something in the past tense and something should have been in the present tense. And the judges unquestioningly accepted the application made by the government. This is interesting. Now, one part of the judgment is very interesting and predictably it has made, political parties on both sides have gone to town on it. And that pertains to Rahul Gandhi's unconditional apology for linking his slogan, Chaukidar Chor Hai, with something that the Supreme Court allegedly said. Now, the Supreme Court said very clearly, no, you cannot attribute statements of this kind to the Supreme Court. And it was magnanimous to accept Rahul Gandhi's unconditional apology and gave him a little sort of big brotherly or fatherly stricture and said, don't do it again. In future, be careful. But what's interesting is the three judges of the Supreme Court, the honorable judges, they did not get into a whole lot of issues. The procedures that resulted in the number of aircraft being purchased coming down from 126 to 36. The fact that an agreement that had been negotiated and was supposedly 95% complete was jettisoned completely in favor of a new agreement where the Prime Minister apparently took a unilateral decision without consulting his then Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar, and the Cabinet Committee on security, not to mention the Indian Air Force. Now, the Supreme Court has gone into none of these issues, these procedural issues, so to say, and it hasn't gone into the technical issues, saying it doesn't have the wherewithal to get into it. Though, in fact, the Supreme Court had, in fact, asked a senior officer of the Indian Air Force and asked him to depose before it. Now, the Supreme Court has not dealt with the dissenting views of the Contract Negotiating Committee. It has not gone into allegations of interference by the Prime Minister's office in the decision-making process. It has not gone into the whole pricing issue, whether there was a sovereign guarantee or not, under the circumstances under which Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group, a company in the Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group, which had been incorporated a little while before it got the offsets contract, which is essentially a contract to manufacture the Rafale aircraft in India. So it didn't get into all that. It said we don't want to depend on media reports, including reports of the former president of France, François Hollande, saying that the reason why Dassault Aviation, which manufactures the Rafale aircraft, gave this contract to this not so well-known company in the Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group. Because, and this is what former President François Hollande has said, because the government of India wanted it. Now, the Supreme Court has gone into none of these issues. And predictably, on both sides, there's a lot of shouting. The Bharatiya Janata Party and the Godi media are shouting that the government has been vindicated, the government's position has been vindicated. But the Congress, surprisingly, took a very, very aggressive position. And it said, and if you look at the conclusion, if you read carefully the last few paragraphs of the judgment given by Justice K.M. Joseph, in particular para 86, it doesn't preclude the Central Bureau of Investigation from registering a first information report. But what the roadblock that comes into the way is the amendment to the Prevention of Corruption Act in the form of the insertion of Section 17A, which requires the CBI to take the prior permission of the government. So the Congress says, why don't you put together a joint parliamentary committee? If Mr. Modi is absolutely clean, why is he fearing an investigation by the CBI? And it's again raised the question on the circumstances under which the then director of the CBI, Alok Verma, was deposed in a quote-unquote midnight coup soon after he met the petitioners in this case. The short point is, time alone will tell whether the Rafale scandal would be dead as a political issue or whether it will continue to engage the attention of the people. Because after all, this was the first major defense contract signed by the then newly elected Modi government. Time alone will tell how controversial the Rafale deal will become in the time to come, or whether the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Narendra Modi government will succeed in completely ensuring that this particular issue, does not gain greater public traction.
Speaking of another ruling by the Supreme Court today, a 5-judge bench led by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi referred the petition seeking review of its previous judgment in the Sabarimala case to a larger bench. The Supreme Court was hearing the review pleas which were filed after the Apex Court verdict of September 28 last year, in which it had lifted the ban that prevented women and girls from entering the Sabarimala temple in Kerala. Calling it an attempt to revive the debate surrounding religion and faith, the Apex Court agreed to refer all the religious issues to a larger bench, which includes issue of Muslim women's entry to mosques, cases on female genital mutilation on the Dawoodi Bohra community, among others, along with the Sabarimala matter. The decision was not unanimous, with Justices R.F. Nariman and D.Y. Chandrachud noting their dissenting view in the case. The reactions of the political fronts to the Supreme Court verdict speaks volume about their idea over the issues surrounding women's rights in the nation. While BJP and Congress both welcomed the decisions, things took a much serious turn when a senior BJP leader went on to warn of severe repercussions if women were to enter the Sabarimala temple. Let's not forget, Kerala had been rocked by the violent protests spearheaded by right-wing outfits and BJP itself in 2018, when the LDF government decided to implement the September 28 verdict. Moving to our next report, hundreds of teachers, students and employees from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi University and Ambedkar University marched today on the streets in New Delhi to oppose the national education policy. The protesters argued that the provisions of NEP will not only make education costly and deprive students from the marginalized sections, but will directly result in the destruction of the very foundations of the public education in India. Take a look at NewsClick's ground report by our correspondent Ravi Kaushal, where he interacts with the protesting students and teachers.
NEP नहीं चलेगा, NEP नहीं चलेगा, और शिक्षा को बेचना बंद करो, और शिक्षा का बाजारीकरण हो बर्बाद, और प्राइवेटाइजेशन नहीं चलेगा, और फीस बढ़ाना बंद करो, और शिक्षा को बेचना बंद करो।
मैं पहले तो एक मजाक के तौर पे ही बोल दूं कि आईवी लीग के लिए आपको आईवी उगाना पड़ेगा, आईवी हिंदुस्तान में नहीं उग सकता है। तो वो खैर सीरियसली अगर बात कहें तो हम लोगों का जो एजुकेशन सिस्टम था, इंडिया का एजुकेशन सिस्टम, भारत का की आज़ादी के बाद वो एजुकेशन सिस्टम का मायने ही यही था कि हम ऐसा एक एजुकेशन सिस्टम तैयार करें जो हमारे देश की जो स्थिति है, हमारे देश के जो समस्याएं हैं, हमारे देश के लोगों का जो, उसको लेके एक ऑर्गेनिक तरीके से एजुकेशन को बनाया जाए। जैसे ही आप कोई मॉडल बाहर से इम्प्लीमेंट करने की बात करते हैं, उसका जितना भी खूबी हो ना हो अपने जगह पे है, उसको आप सीधे इंपोर्ट करके यहाँ ले आएँ। यहाँ की समस्याएं अलग है, यहाँ का रिसोर्सेज अलग है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें अलग हैं यहाँ पे, उसको नज़रअंदाज करके इस तरीके की पॉलिसी लेने का मतलब ये है कि आपके पास अपना कोई दिमाग है नहीं।
ये प्राइवेटाइजेशन हो रहा है, ये वो हम छात्रों से वसूलने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उन्हें अडानी अंबानी MNCs को बड़े बड़े फ़ायदे पहुंचाने हैं। तो वे सोच रहे हैं कि हम कैसे वसूलें इसको, तो छात्रों से वसूलना चाहते हैं। ये गलत है, क्योंकि हम मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से आते हैं, हमारा एक ही काम है पढ़ाई। हम पढ़ाई करके एक ऐसे ओहदे तक पहुँचे कि हम भी कुछ चेंजेस कर सकें, लेकिन जब पढ़ाई इतनी महंगी होगी तो हम पढ़ेंगे कैसे?
See, my biggest apprehension comes from the fact that, first of all, there is no regulation. They are talking about a new regulatory framework, but public institutions like Delhi University, or I mean in India, a majority of the people who are getting higher education are dependent upon public institutions. Now they are replacing the way in which public institutions have been regulated by what they call these BOGs. These are completely corporate, privatized bodies consisting of trusts of people from the industry who are going to be requested to take over the erstwhile public funded colleges, institutions and universities, and they are going to run the show. The government is not going to offer any standard measure of inputs.
Next, we have students of various private medical colleges from Uttarakhand who held a press conference in New Delhi to talk about an arbitrary hike in their fees from 80,000 to 2,15,000 per year. The students have been protesting against this hike for more than a month. Though the hike was reversed by the single and double benches of the High Court, the private colleges continue to strong-arm students to pay the increased fee or abort studies. NewsClick spoke to the protesting students. Take a look.
सर उत्तराखंड आयुर्वेदिक यूनिवर्सिटी जो हमारी हर्रावाला में स्थित है सर, वो कम से कम 10 ऑर्डर निकालती है सर। 12 अक्टूबर, 17 नवंबर, 22 नवंबर, 27 अप्रैल, 5 अक्टूबर सर, दुनिया भर के ऑर्डर पे ऑर्डर निकलते हैं, लेकिन धरातल पे कुछ नहीं होता। कॉलेज वाले फिर भी अपनी मनमानी पे उतरे हुए होते हैं। उसके बाद सर हम पिछले 47 दिन से हम हंगर स्ट्राइक कर रहे हैं सर। किस चीज़ के लिए कर रहे हैं सर? ये बहुत बड़ी शर्मनाक बात होगी कि हम एक कोर्ट का ऑर्डर, जो संवैधानिक हक है हमारा, जो संविधान ने दिया है, उसको मनाने के लिए हम सर हंगर स्ट्राइक पर बैठे हुए हैं। जिस संविधान की कसमें खाकर सर ये जो पॉलिटिशियन है, ये सर शपथ ग्रहण करते हैं सर, उस संविधान को ये सर नहीं मानते सर। इस चीज़ उसको मनवाने के लिए सर हमें हंगर स्ट्राइक पे उतरना पड़ा। उसके बाद सर 19 अक्टूबर को सर हम हंगर स्ट्राइक पे बैठे हुए थे सर। रात को शासन प्रशासन के लोग आते हैं, पुलिस वाले आते हैं, और सर हमें इतनी बुरी बर्बरता से सर हमें मारा जाता है रात को सर 1:30 बजे। सर रात को 1:30 बजे हम पे हाथापाई होती है। इसलिए सर हम अपना सपोर्ट भी मांगते हैं और ये सोचकर कि आपने वाइट कोट को रेड कैसे बनाया सर। आज दिल्ली एम्स हमारे साथ खड़ा हुआ है सर, JNU हमारे साथ, स्टूडेंट पावर सर पूरी हमारे साथ खड़ी हुई है, मौलाना आज़ाद हमारे साथ खड़ा हुआ है सर सपोर्ट में कि ये कब तक चलेगा सर, ये तो गुंडागर्दी है सरासर।
नहीं, ये लगभग 3,500 आयुर्वेद के छात्रों के भविष्य के साथ खिलवाड़ कर रहे हैं। इसमें देखने लायक बात है कौन इसके पीछे है, ये मैनेजमेंट कौन चला रहे ये आयुर्वेद के संस्थान। एक तो पतंजलि आयुर्वेद विज्ञान संस्था है जिसका बाबा रामदेव और आचार्य बालकृष्ण उसके पीछे है। एक हिमालय जो आयुर्वेद कॉलेज है उसके पीछे जो है आरुषि निशांक है, जिनका यहाँ मानव संसाधन मंत्री जो है केंद्र का, उनका बेटी है। दूसरा जो डून इंस्टीट्यूट है वो वहाँ का जो आयुष मंत्री है उनका बेटा उससे जुड़ा हुआ है। और एक वहाँ का जो प्राइवेट जो इंस्टीट्यूशंस है उसका जो प्रेसिडेंट है वो चला रही है।
अभी इस टाइम पे 80 मेडिकल कॉलेजेस ऐसे हैं जो इस तरह की स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं पूरे देश भर में, जहाँ पे प्राइवेट कॉलेजेस ने जहाँ तो फीस बहुत बढ़ा दी है, जहाँ प्राइवेट कॉलेजेस के पास कोई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं था लेकिन डिग्री स्टार्ट कर दी है, और वो ऐसा एक पूरा का पूरा नेक्सस बन गया है प्राइवेट कॉलेजेस का जो अब किसी को नहीं मानता।
Now moving to West Bengal for our next story. Thousands of primary teachers in the state became the latest victim of the Mamata Banerjee-led TMC government's apathy. Thousands of primary teachers are up in arms against the state government since November 11, demanding an increase in their monthly salaries. The teachers have alleged that primary school teachers working in government schools in other states get a much higher salary than them. It is important to mention that this is not the first time when the primary teachers in West Bengal have raised the issue of meager salaries being paid to them. The teachers earlier had launched an indefinite hunger strike in the month of July this year, which lasted for 18 days. The state's TMC government at that time had agreed to meet their demands made by the protesters, following which the hunger strike was called off. However, 3 months down the line, the government still has not published the notification of an increased salary. To give you a perspective, the existing grade pay of a trained primary teacher in West Bengal stands only at Rs 2,600, whereas for the same job in other states, the pay scale is Rs 4,200. Today has marked the 4th day of the protest of the primary teachers, and till now, none of the officials from the state government has approached them or even made attempts to talk to them. Now for our international stories, let's move to Anushka.
Israel and Islamic Jihad, the Palestinian militant group, have agreed to an Egypt-brokered ceasefire. Mussam al-Brahim, the group spokesperson, said that the ceasefire goes into effect from 5:30 a.m. local time. This comes after 2 days of intense fighting over Israel's targeted assassination of an Islamic Jihadi military commander and his wife in an airstrike on their house in Gaza in the late hours of Monday. 34 Palestinians, a majority of them civilians, have been killed by Israeli air and drone strikes since Tuesday morning, with 97 others, including 30 children, suffering injuries ever since the violent clashes erupted between Israel and the Islamic Jihad. In response, the Islamic Jihad fired close to 400 rockets towards Israel, resulting in non-stop warning sirens in parts of northern and southern Israel, including as far as Tel Aviv, alerting people about the incoming rockets. Schools and public institutions have been forced to close down, both in Gaza and in Israel. People too, both in Gaza and Israel, are not stepping out of their homes to avoid being caught in the violence. At least 63 Israelis were wounded by the rocket fire from Gaza and were being treated in various Israeli hospitals. Israeli authorities had also put in place restrictions on citizens which forbade all non-essential workers to go outdoors and cancelled schools as soon as the fighting began. Following news of the ceasefire, Israeli authorities relaxed the restrictions it had placed on citizens in the southern border areas, adding that people can go to work provided there is a bomb shelter close to their work. In Gaza too, normal life and public activities started to resume, even though Israeli drones could still be heard overhead. Moving to our next story, The public hearings in Donald Trump's impeachment inquiry began yesterday. Two key witnesses came forward with their testimony on US President Trump's phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. William Taylor, the acting ambassador to Ukraine, and George Kent, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, testified for over 5 hours. Taylor in his testimony said that he was concerned when he found out that the White House was withholding security funds amounting to nearly $400 million to Ukraine. The evidence for this came from a whistleblower who had submitted that Trump asked Zelensky to initiate corruption proceedings against Joe Biden's son in a phone call in July in exchange for the security funds. Former Vice President Joe Biden is considered as a potential rival to Trump in the upcoming 2020 elections. However, the first day of the public proceedings did not present much in terms of new or strong evidence against Trump. Republicans rubbished most of the testimonies as being hearsay and second-hand information. Many have also pointed to the fact that the mainstream media is playing up these hearings and the Democrat version of events while trying to bury or sideline the damning evidence that does exist against Biden and his son. In another story from the US, police tried to detain Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin on dubious charges of assault. Code Pink is an anti-war group based in the US. They were also part of the Embassy Protection Collective, a group of activists and movements that was invited to stay in the Venezuelan embassy by the Venezuelan government in April this year. This was after diplomatic relations between US and Venezuela broke and Venezuelan diplomats had to vacate the embassy. The Embassy Protection Collective took up residence in the embassy in order to protect it from occupation by supporters of Juan Guaido, who is USA's main man in these operations and was leading the coup attempts against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. In the demonstrations that occurred outside the Venezuelan embassy, many right-wing pro-Guaido Venezuelans had assaulted Maduro's supporters. In all of this, Medea Benjamin faced this arrest attempt yesterday without a warrant and on belated charges. She was accused of assaulting Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz months after the alleged incident occurred. The police also insisted that they had footage of the incident, but on reviewing it, they chose not to proceed with the arrest. Prior to Medea, journalist Max Blumenthal was arrested on similar dubious charges last month. He was released after spending a weekend in jail. Now over to Australia. Reports about the fourth death comes in as the bushfires ravage the eastern coast of Australia. The continent nation is facing one of its biggest ever bushfire crises. Nearly 120 fires have spread across the eastern coast, spanning 2 states. The fires have so far killed 4 people and gutted over 300 houses. The states of Queensland and New South Wales that are affected by the fires have sent out crisis warning to nearly 500,000, that's 5 lakh residents in the 2 states, calling them to prepare and evacuate if necessary. It's also estimated that the fires have gutted nearly 1 million hectares of land in New South Wales alone. The state government in New South Wales has already called it the most dangerous bushfire week in the nation's history and given out the catastrophe alert as firestorms begin to be reported in several parts of the state. Residents in the state of Western Australia have also been warned of the fires expanding into their bushlands. While the source of the ongoing bushfires are yet to be ascertained, a multitude of factors have been speculated for the crisis. While the police are now investigating a possible arson by a teenager in Queensland, meteorologists and climate activists have pointed to the fact that Australia, since 2017, has recorded some of its hottest years, which was paralleled by a spike in bushfire incidents. Others have pointed to the underfunded emergency services like the fire department being already stretched to its limit even before the fires began, under the current Liberal National Coalition government of Scott Morrison that has considerably brought down budgetary allocation for the services. That's all we have time for in today's episode of the Daily Roundup.
Visit our website newsclick.in, Facebook page and our YouTube for more stories.
Thank you.